Aloha, namaste. This is Alexis with Radha Home Yoga, and I'm here to bring us our new moon forecast. So I'm going to make this video pretty short. I'm about to do a part 2 for the rest of this year and the transits. So this is kind of a just on the new moon, and the new moon is going to be in the first few degrees of Virgo. So we have the sun and the moon literally just moving in from Leo into Virgo in the star of Uttara Falguni. And it's going to be on the 17th of September at 4:01 a.m. Pacific Standard Time that we'll actually see the sun and moon come together in exact degrees in the early part of Virgo. And the very beginning of the feminine signs is a state we call mrita. It's dead. It means that it's an energy that's already been played out and used and done, and we don't have as much engagement there. So it's an interesting new moon because the next new moon is also going to be in Virgo at the very end of Virgo. So it's going to be at 29 degrees, which is the Bala state, the infant state for the feminine sign of Virgo. So this is a theme we're having actually in the next few, and I'm going to talk about that more in my transit video, but it's like the next few new moons all have this quality to them. The one after that is going to be at 29 degrees Libra, and the one after that is going to be at 29 degrees Scorpio, and it's going to include an eclipse. So this quality of not being fully present is a big one, and it's starting now. Like, this is the time that it's really beginning for us. And the star of Uttara Falguni is a star that moves the energy from Leo, where we're kings and queens, where we're government and we're power, and it starts to bring it more into the management side of things. Like, if you could see the king having to also, pass everything to his ministers and accountants, and starting to get into the details and the organization of the information. So we can't really keep our kingdom in order if it's all just ruling and all sort of, standing up tall, and even making in Uttara Falguni, the part that's in Leo is about sort of making the contracts, making the deals. It's called the wedding star, and it's said to be where Parvati and Shiva actually came together in marriage and union. And that aspect of it is like, you can see the deals that get made between kingdoms, between companies, between big entities that have a lot of power and a lot of control, how they come together and make deals. And then there also has to be logistics behind that, right? There's like the big bold idea of, we could see these two groups working together, and then there's the part where all that gets like detailed out and oriented and fixed in that way. And that's on a bigger scale. On a personal scale, we have our own kingdom, our own little world, and our big ideas, and then we have the ways in which we have to actually manage those and make everything fit. Everything has to have a box or a drawer. Everything has to have its time frame in our schedule. Everything has to work out. So that's really where we're entering into. But again, it's the very initial stages, so it's part of us is very detached from the process. And has this mrita quality. It's like, I've already done this before. I don't want to do the details. I don't want to deal with the details. And we can see that definitely with big entities and people with a lot of power. Love the power, and they don't always love the accounting. They don't always love the accountability that's required of that power. So we can see us probing in that way right now collectively at those entities that do have power, and then also within our own world. That management, that micromanagement that steps in and really starts to, find the loopholes, find the places where things don't work and don't fit. And that's an obsessive quality that can occur in Virgo, where we get really overwhelmed by the details, and if things don't work, it becomes like a fixation. We want everything to be perfect. We want everything to be new. We want everything to run without a hitch, and we really want ourselves to be purified and everything to be pure and clean and have this quality of, youthfulness and perfection and cleanliness and not being used, right? Everything is used as soon as a car leaves the lot, as soon as a house has someone move in, as soon as a person is born on this planet, they get older, right? The minute your baby is born, they start to get older. It doesn't take long to start to see them get older. And we have an obsession with youth in our society, actually, and an obsession with this kind of perfection and cleanliness. But what we do is we just cover everything up, right? We fake it. The problem in Virgo is that a true desire to actually really make things purified like that. So you see people who can be very obsessed with their health who have planets in Virgo. Oftentimes they have disease to begin with, and they have to constantly combat that with healthy practices. So we all might, find ourselves wanting to enter into cleanses and holistic practices using natural medicine and things like that. And wanting to really re-purify ourselves is the goal, to re-purify. Now, on a more twisted social level, there's been a lot of hype around pedophilia and this fixation on young, particularly girls, but also boys. There's a new movie on Netflix, and there's a lot of hype on the girls specifically. Well, Virgo is the virgin girl. It is the young girl. It is the pure child girl. And the part of us collectively that wants to maintain the sacredness of that, but also the long, long history we have of violating that and using it in weird ways, trying to keep women down because they're not that perfect ideal of prim, proper, young, clean, perfection, virginalness. So they're dirty and they're gross and they're all these other things once they get used. That's one aspect of the mentality around it. Another aspect of the mentality around it is putting that up on a pedestal. In India, for example, there's ceremony that happens around these young girls, and some of them are honoring them in their youthfulness. Other ones are, and I honestly just thought of this while I was doing this. I didn't actually have this as a plan to talk about beforehand, but I have a little bit of trouble recalling all the details, but there's a Kumara, there's a young girl in villages, specifically I think in Nepal, that takes on this quality of the goddess and takes on this quality of power. And they specifically choose this person based on many different qualities, similar to like picking the Dalai Lama or something, where there's things, traits that call them out to be the one that gets picked. But as soon as they begin menstruating, they no longer have this role anymore. They move out of that role, whereas somebody like the Dalai Lama doesn't ever run out of that role until he dies. So the quality that the girl is only perfect and only able to do this before she's menstruating, that idea is very prominent in our world, and it's a lot of what drives the pedophilia industry to begin with. This looking for this perfection, this innocence, this sweetness. And I think in this cycle, we're going to see some stuff come up around that, more than it already has. But there's a call, the call to arms here is that Mercury is in his own sign. He has been in his own sign, so we've had like all the planets in their own sign for a while, for a month, and the sun is moving out of his own sign, out of his power, out of that place of power that he's holding, and into Virgo, where suddenly the king is not such a king anymore. Suddenly scrutiny is a thing, and everything needs to be questioned and boxed. And again, if the T's aren't crossed and the I's aren't dotted, then that's a problem, and everything needs to be fixed. Everything needs to be made so that it works. Well, that's going to cause a lot of chaos in the upper realms, right, of people who are trying to hold power, because the T's don't cross and the I's don't dot a lot, right? That's a common issue in power structures, is that things get swept under the carpet. And then there's these accountant people who are supposed to come in and just make it all right, make the data right, make this right, make everything work so that our story works. Well, that's going to start to come out because we have not only the power falling into its place of scrutiny, but we have the Lord there. We have Mercury there in his own sign in its point of exaltation, where we are all just have more discernment and more capacity to tell, truth from fiction. Maybe you've even been noticing this for the last few weeks in your own, that you're starting to become more discerning about the things you're reading, and maybe not just going for immediately the confirmation bias like you were before, like, oh, this article is so great, it's like, okay, but it's pretty much fluff. It just confirms what you believe. So maybe a little bit more discernment about what you're reading and what you're sharing, and also really, really scrutinizing the details of everything, and whether or not they're really like accurate and based in fact, and whether they fit, whether everything is fitting and working. Now, one of the issues in Virgo is that nothing ever is perfect. Nothing ever is fixed to be perfect. So there is a part where we have to accept fault. We have to accept that things won't always work out. They won't always go into perfect, neat boxes. So the process can bring out a lot of things that are being swept under the carpet, but there's also a part of us that needs to say, hey, nothing's ever going to be done perfectly. There's always going to be flaws. And we can work and work and work to make things perfect. We can work as hard as we can, but we can't ever make it perfect. It starts in a divine state, and from there it's moving away from perfection. That's literally the process of existence, the facts of life. You know, the minute something is born, it immediately starts moving towards death. The minute something is used, it's no longer new. The minute anything takes one step away from its pristine, natural beginning state, it is moving away from that. And we can use healthcare, and we can use herbs, and we can use, elixirs, and we can do exercises, and we can do anything we want to do on earth to try to bring ourselves closer to that state. But at the end of the day, we are aging. We are moving towards death. We are not moving towards newness again until after we die. And then we'll start the cycle again. So this is something that we're going to be learning heavy this month, and we're going to be hit twice with 2 new moons. 2 new moons there mean 2 cycles that start off with Virgo energy. But again, they're both starting in this sort of Mrita or Bala state. They're both starting as either dead or infant. So neither time are we fully engaged or fully understanding what's going on. There's a part of us that's either over it, like in this cycle, like we've already done all the research on that, or we already know, and we're emotionally not attached to it. Not as emotionally attached as we would be if it was in the middle of Virgo, or if it was even 3 degrees in. Technically I think 6 degrees starts the states of Bala and Mrita, but this is like extreme. It's 0 degrees, it's 29 degrees. It's literally the last and first degrees that something can be. So that's why I mentioned it. If it was just 3 degrees, it'd be like maybe a side point, but it's like all the next new moons, it's in the 29 degrees or the 0 degrees. It's like really, really checked out in many ways. Our moon, our mental energy, our emotional energy, our psyche, our connection to these things is checked out. That's also important for us in our transits, and I'm going to talk about that a lot more in the bigger video I do. But as we move into the end part of Virgo, where it's less about the contracts being made and less about the agreements being made, and more about the structures we want to see, the architecture that we want to bring into the world, we're going to see a new cycle of Virgo-ness too, but it'll be more about how we can socially implement a lot of that stuff, less about just working through the accounting and the details. So I will, of course, also do a report then. But I just wanted to bring this little update. And we have, so Moon, Sun, very early degrees of Virgo. Mercury's much further in. Mercury's at 23 degrees in Chitra already, in that nakshatra already. So by the next new moon, he'll be well into Libra. We have Ketu, the south node, and Rahu, the north node, still in their Gemini-Sagittarius axis, but they're days away from moving out of that. So we have, today is the 16th, I believe, and tomorrow is the 17th with the new moon. On the 19th into the 20th, depending on where you live, what time zone you live in, we're going to have Rahu Ketu move signs. So Rahu's going to move into Taurus, Ketu's going to move into Scorpio, and you're already feeling this shift. I know it. You're already starting to feel your emphasis get strong into your values, strong into, nature and food and grounding yourself and finding similar valued people to yourself, where you can really root down and find some stability, because things have been very unstable. Really moving out of the cerebral realm and out of the realm of wanting to just spew facts all over the place, and more into the realm of wanting to get along and harmonize, make things beautiful, comfortable, and have your needs met. This is really where we're moving with this cycle. And the South Node will be moving into Scorpio, where we'll start to have to dive deep into our shadow work and even the parts of ourselves that we really demonize. Jupiter just started direct motion a couple days ago. So our planet of our beliefs and our ideals and our capacity to expand into higher truths is now forward moving in his own sign. So we're really going to start to have more grace flowing, more connection to true beliefs and high ideals, and really maybe start to move a little bit out of the dogma. It's challenging because Sagittarius can hold so much dogma, and sometimes it's very difficult to discern between what is and what is not. But as we open up more and more into this Jupiter cycle, especially for people who have, certain rising signs where that's a very strong house for them, or a dharmic house for them, specifically Sagittarius rising to begin with, that is going to be a blessing for the next couple months for us, where we're really able to attach ourselves to higher beliefs and really even step outside our comfort zone a little bit to understand where different perspectives might come from, and why beliefs are the way they are in our society and in our own self, in our own family, in our own little social circle and world. So that's a blessing. And Saturn will be moving into his direct state by the end of the month. So the 28th, we'll see Saturn start to move out of stationary. Right now he's kind of stationary retrograde, and then he'll be stationary direct and start to really forward motion with our commitments, with our capacity to really just roll up our sleeves and do the hard work that needs to be done, the part of us that can accept our fear and honor some of it as positive fear, as fear that's actually very valid and centered around things that are truthfully quite scary. Our capacity to sit with the solitude and sit in solitude to really meditate and find our own connection. Preferably first thing every day, we find our own connection to ourselves and to our own truth, and we're able to move out into the world emanating from that place, as opposed to just picking up our phone and constantly being connected to all these other ideas and stuff that just fills into your empty brain fresh after sleep. So that quality of Saturn that holds boundaries and that allows us to access time standing still is really the highest quality of Saturn. The part of Saturn that's fearful and agitated and feels pressure and stuff like that is the lower qualities of Saturn. And since it's forward moving in its own sign, we can see that we might be able to access some of those higher qualities, especially again if it falls into a dharmic house for you, if it falls into a house that helps you do that. And Mars is still retrograde in his own sign, so he's going to be in Pisces by October 3rd, but until then he's retrograde in his own sign, and we can see a lot of anger and frustration building. We've especially because he's giving drishti to Venus at the moment. See, Venus is at 18 degrees, Mars retrograde is only at 3 degrees, so they're kind of far in degrees. Mars is moving further away from being in direct alignment or direct gaze with Venus, but he is still 4 houses away, giving a one-way drishti to Venus, which could create some sexual energy for each of us, some passion within us, but it also makes our happiness feel a little bit angry at times, and our connections, our relationships with other people feel some anger that comes out. And because it's retrograde, it's repressed. When Mars is in Aries on its own, it starts off angry, but then he really finds his flow. It's like, okay, well, if I run every day, or if I, do my practice every day, I'm gonna have outlets for my energy and it won't turn into anger. But when it's retrograde, we're more delayed on our action and we're more repressed in our anger. And that quality comes out in ways, and especially since Venus is in Cancer, where we have a lot of emotions, we feel like everyone's not doing as much as us, and we're giving so much and no one's giving back to us, and we really have a crybaby quality when Venus is in Cancer, especially in our relationships. We give and give and give and we don't get in return, and there's just high levels of emotion. There's also high levels of empathy available and a lot of love and care and counseling available, but it's it's a challenging time for us emotionally. We don't hold our relationships with appropriate boundaries when Venus is in Cancer. And when Mars is giving that drishti with a retrograde quality, it's like repressed anger that's coming out on top of into our relationships, really, quite honestly, directly into our relationships. So that's something to be really aware of, that discernment and Mercury can help a lot, because we have a quality of being able to converse, have conversations that have more clarity in them. But unfortunately, Mercury, although exalted in his own sign in Virgo, has a less emotional quality, which can sometimes feel really bad, especially to people who have planets in water signs. It can feel really robotic and not really empathic, not really feel like somebody is relating to us at all. They're just saying the facts and the details, and that can be very harsh feeling. Although there can also be that discernment where you realize, oh, I maybe was being a little emotional. Maybe I felt anger beneath the surface that I'm not expressing properly. Maybe there's some things I could do in my own life to step into my courage and my discipline, maybe by doing some physical practices and trying to return to my routine, even though I feel this delay with it. So those are all things that can help us a little bit navigate this time. And I think I will leave it at that for now, and be with you in a few days with a bigger forecast for the rest of this year, the part 2 of the first one I did. But hopefully this was very helpful for you, and you can see the ways in which you're starting to feel that Virgo energy come into your life, and really start connecting with nature, both from the Rahu and Taurus, and also this Virgo cycle. Really being around plants can be so helpful in healing. Just walking in nature can calm and soothe the soul. And really taking a step back and a breath when you experience information, and allow your natural discernment to step in and categorize things as far as true or false, and recognize your detachment from things as well. Recognize where you're at with that, because it could be a great time for meditation, a great time to do some healing on the mind and the spirit, and all this anxiousness that we've carried collectively for the last 6 months, really the last 9 months. We can really do some healing work on in this more detached state, just by not being so vested in it, and not being so airy with the information and the explosion of it all, but really, not needing to communicate right away, taking our time and moving a little slower and a little more methodically, is really the blessing of the feminine sign of Virgo. So I hope this is helpful, and if you like this video, please share, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and if you're not already on my email list, go ahead to www.radhahomeyoga.com, R-A-D-H-A, home, H-O-M-E, yoga.com, and you can sign up for the newsletter, and you will get this free report on Rahu and Ketu for all 12 signs, all 12 rising signs, and you will also receive new free reports that I do, like when Jupiter moves into Capricorn. I'll be doing a new report in November, early November, late October on that. And you also get these great news reports directly to your inbox, so you don't have to find them on social media. So if you haven't done it yet, please do that, and I will see you really soon. Namaste.